Please attention, it is 7:30 and this is the City of Brainerd City Council meeting reconvening from our 5:30 closed session earlier this evening. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item number 2 is the roll call. City Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Stunek.
Here.
Johnson. Pritchett.
Here.
Bevins.
Here.
And Bateau.
Here.
Everybody's here. Item 3, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Motion by Stunek,
Second.
second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. That motion
Well,
carries.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
We're gonna have to do roll call votes since Tad's gone.
Oh, golly, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll on the approval of the agenda.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, we are underway. Item 4 is the consent calendar. All matters listed are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Pritchett. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by O'Day. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that is adopted. Item 6, Council Committee Report, Safety and Public Works Committee, Chairman Mike O'Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Safety and Public Works, we had 8 items on the agenda tonight. First of which was a event parking lot closure application for the Lakes Area Music Festival block party. Motion coming out of committee was to approve the attached event application with the conditions listed in the application. I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by O'Day, a second by Pritchett. Any discussion?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. O'Day.
This is the Lakes Area Music Festival block party coming back to the Laurel Street parking lot, August 8th, 2022. The closure of the lot, I believe, is at, I don't have it on this sheet, is it 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock? Anyway, it'll be in the afternoon until 8:30. And that is on August 8th.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson. Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, please proceed.
Second item is approval of a cleanup day event with the Lakes Area Skatepark Association. Motion coming out of committee was to recommend approval for the concept for a citywide cleanup day with a budget of $4,500 for purchasing the dumpsters for use from Green Day Roll-Off and Landscape Services LLC, and I so move.
We have a motion by O'Day, second by Erickson. Any discussion?
Yeah. So this
Chairman O'Day.
This is kind of a new partnership with the Lakes Area Skatepark Association. They have approached the Parks Board at their last meeting to help to raise funds for a skate park to possibly go in Memorial Park. And this will be one of our first partnerships with this group. The $4,500 is for the dumpsters on a Saturday. I believe this day,
May 21st.
May 21st. And it's going to benefit the city as well. Basically, it's a cleanup for any resident of Brainerd. You're going to have to prove that you are a resident of Brainerd in the city limits of Brainerd. There will be some fees for certain items, but basically they're asking for donations. And the city's just going to help out by providing those dumpsters.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm actually working with this group on this project. What they wanted to do was group with the city on some kind of cleanup, and what I had mentioned was that in the past, the city had done some kind of cleanup opportunities for residents, thought that this might be a great opportunity for us to figure out a way to staff it So what they're mainly offering is the staffing of the event, and then the city would basically be operating this much like we've done in the past where we've had cleanup opportunities.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek. Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item was a rejection of the bids for improvement 22-01, 2022 seal coating project. Motion coming out of committee was to recommend rejecting all of the bids for improvement 22-01, and likewise shelving these plans until next year where they could be rebid under more favorable conditions, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, a second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Mr. O'Day.
Explain, this is our seal coating project for the year. We basically save about $150,000 a year. This project should have been smaller than last year's and under $150,000. But when it went out for bid, it was $276,000. So the price of this seal coating product has gone sky high, so we're just going to not do it this year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question. If we're not doing it this year, is this going to put our roads at risk of deteriorating faster than we had otherwise planned?
I can answer.
Yep, Mr. Chair.
Our city engineer has assured us that we are actually ahead of schedule with the seal coating project, so just putting it off by 1 year, we can always talk about that the next time, but for how expensive it is, I think this is the right way to go.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is to reject the bids. Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek. Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item is a bit contrary to the last, and this is to approve cost share agreement with Crow Wing County for a 2022 seal coat project in the Maple Street parking lot. Motion coming out was to approve the attached cost share agreement as presented and authorizing proper signatures on the document as presented, and I so move.
I have a motion by O'Day. Is there a second?
Second, Erickson.
Second by Erickson. Any discussion? Mr. Chair?
So the Crow Wing County does a big seal coating project, and they are actually seal coating a project that is basically shared. We own part of the parking lot, they own part of the parking lot. It saves us money if they decide to do seal coating this year. But Mr. Sandy has given us confidence that the pre-bidding estimate of $13,180.51 is fairly accurate going forward. So entering into this cost share agreement would actually, we wouldn't be able to pull out if we decided not to, if the bids came back really high. But like I said, it should be around that $13,000 range.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item is plans and specification approval to authorize quotes for improvement 22-02 2022 crack sealing projects. Motion coming out of committee was to approve the plans and specification and authorizing receiving of quotes for the labor for work for improvement 22-02 2022 crack seal project, and the quotes to be due on May 6th, 2022 at 10 a.m. And I so move.
Second.
I have a motion by O'Day, a second by Pritchett. Any discussion?
No.
Looks pretty solid. Any discussion? Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item is a professional services agreement with SEH for improvement 19-02. The motion coming out of committee was to recommend the approval of professional services agreement with SEH in the total amount not to exceed $160,000 for improvement 19-02, Cuyuna Lakes State Trail Extension, and I so move.
Motion by O'Day. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Chairman O'Day.
So we entered into agreement with SEH in 2019. We're trying to find a new agreement to continue this work on the trail. This is for the section going through the NP Center as well as west of the NP Center towards downtown. It's about 10% of cost, so it's pretty reasonable pricing. And this cost is reimbursable by the DNR funds set for this project.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next item, number 7, is setting a public hearing for annual municipal separate storm sewer annual report. Motion coming out of committee was to set the public hearing for the city's MS4 permit for May 2nd, 2022 at the regularly scheduled city council meeting, and I so move.
We have a motion by O'Day. Is there a second?
Second, Erickson.
Second by Erickson. Any discussion?
Do you want to know what it is?
What's that?
Do you want to know what it is?
I want to know if there's going to be videos.
Yeah. Of this?
No, of storm sewer.
Yeah.
I hope so too. Pretty exciting thing. We have to do this every year. This is the day that we're going to do it. Has everything to do with storm sewers, and it's very exciting.
I think so.
Yeah, me too.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yep.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last item on our agenda was the declaring sufficiency of a petition and setting a public hearing on a vacation commenced by a majority of abutting landowners, alley blocks M and E, West Brainerd. This motion coming out of committee was actually to recommend adopting the attached resolution, declaring that the petition is in fact sufficient and sets the public hearing on the proposed vacation for May 2nd, 2022 at 7:30 PM, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by O'Day, a second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Chairman O'Day?
So you can see on the map here, there is a unimproved right-of-way that the city has rights to on this block, which was recently purchased by Vicky Kinney, not personally, it was a nonprofit, my neighbor to love. Her and another landowner that owns the southern few lots there have both signed this petition, so they have 100% of ownership that has signed this petition. This doesn't make the street vacation official. It just sets the public hearing, which will obviously be on May 2nd. And then we would come back at the next meeting with a recommendation from our lawyer and engineer on whether we should or should not approve this petition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yep.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes, that motion passes, Mr. Chair.
End of report.
Thank you very much. Next up is item 6B. I'll get there. Personal and Finance Committee Chairman Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 7 items on our agenda, the first of which is to approve hiring list paid on-call firefighters in 2022 and authorize to hire. And the motion is to approve the fire department to establish a paid on-call firefighter hiring list and to hire up to 4 paid on-call firefighters, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Chairman Johnson, a second by Chief Stunek. Chairman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are currently at 36 paid on-call, and we generally have a goal of 40 firefighters. So if we do hire these 4 paid on-call, we will have a full roster of 40 paid on-call firefighters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yep.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
All right, the next motion is to approve a hiring of Police Officer Hunter Williams, and the motion is to hire Police Officer Hunter Williams starting at LELS Step 1 rate of $29.79 with a starting date of April 11th, 2022, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Johnson, a second by Stengline. Chairman Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. This gets our roster of sworn officers up to 25 out of the 27 we hope to have by the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any other discussion? Anybody else? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one's a little bit longer. It's to accept the resignation of Community Development Director David Chansky. And there's 3 recommended actions. We put them all into one motion, though. So we move to accept with regret the resignation of Community Development Director David Chansky effective April 22nd, 2022. And further, to authorize staff to negotiate an MOA with the IBEW Administrative Support Union to appoint Assistant Planner James Cranvick as the acting Community Development Director effective April 23rd. And 3, and finally, approve the formation of a work group comprised of some city council members to work with City Administrator Bergman and HR Director Schubert on filling the position, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Chairman Johnson, a second by Chief Stunek. Chairman Johnson.
So, for those who don't know, in the public, our Community Development Director recently accepted a job of a city administrator at a different city, and he put in his resignation, so we're just accepting with regret, but wish him all the best and congratulations. We know when we hired you on that your goal, your career goal was to be a city administrator, and it's great that you got this opportunity. So for now, we're going to try to appoint James Cranvick as the acting Community Development Director until we get this position replaced, but we need an MOA with the union to get him on there. And Mr. Chair, I volunteer to be on that work group, and maybe if we can get another council member too.
Okay, let's do the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so let's stick with those 3 items. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Mr. Chansky, thank you for your service to the city of Brainerd.
It's been a privilege, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to, and we've often just gone with 2, so we don't violate any open meeting laws. I would like to nominate Chairman Johnson from PNF, and on this side, either one of you, any of you 3 wish to be part of that?
Okay.
All right, and Chairman O'Day would be my nominees for the work group.
Do we need a motion to approve that?
I'd like that.
I'd move to approve your recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Pritchett. Any discussion on the work group? Hearing none, all, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Thank you, Chairman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next up is enter into consulting agreements for plan and rate studies. And the motion is to authorize staff to enter into agreements with UFS as represented to prepare financial plans and rate design studies for the sanitary and storm sewer rates. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stengline. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, and that motion passes. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next up was just a discussion on the number of on-sale liquor licenses. We've had 2 different business owners who operate restaurants in the city of Brainerd with a Class 2 liquor license inquire about getting an additional license if they open another restaurant. Currently, our code does not allow that. So staff gave us a recommendation and we thought it was good, kind of directed them to bring forward an ordinance change where people could operate multiple restaurants with a liquor license, but still remaining that you could only operate 1 bar with a liquor license. So those changes will be coming forward to us. And then the next up was another discussion of the 2023 capital equipment and facility budget. We kind of went through line by line, looked at what we have. There are a couple things I think we're going to need to change or pull out. Maybe. I think we should pull a couple things out. I encourage everybody on the council to go through what we approved in December and what's been added or changed, and see if you have anything you have questions about that you want further explained before we move forward, or if you maybe want it removed or anything. And we'll come back and get anybody's questions answered. So if you have any questions, get them to myself or Jennifer, please.
Thank you.
And then the final item is the update on the request of funds to be returned from the Lakes Area Media Collaborative. And the update is there is no update.
Seriously disappointed.
End of report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next up is item 7, unfinished business. Item 7A is the land purchase for parcel ID 413-61081 and 413-61080. And who's presenting this? Is you?
I am, Mr. Chair.
All right.
The Brainerd Public Utilities Commission has recommended purchasing these two parcels. Robert's Land, Sean, if you could throw those up on the map or on the screen, I'd appreciate it. On March 7th, the City Council had a closed session to discuss the purchase of the land. Motion was made by the council in open session for BPU to negotiate the purchase of the land. BPU will acquire PID 413-61081, 413-61080. Further, that the council did not want the grant funds to be used to have more flexibility in the use of the land. At their March 29th meeting, the commission did make a motion, BPU commission made a motion to accept that purchase agreement in the amount of $300,000 pending city council approval. Attached to your packet is the packet of information that was shared by Superintendent Magnuson, as well as the purchase agreement. Recommended motion is to authorize the purchase agreement pending review by the city attorney.
Any questions of the Administrator Bergman on the recommendation? Any questions? Hearing none, we're looking for a motion to authorize the execution of the purchase agreement for those two parcels pending review by the city attorney. Is there a motion to
So
approve?
moved, Johnson.
So moved, Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stengline. Any further discussion?
I have one
Yep.
question.
Chairman O'Day?
Is this being purchased with city funds, taxpayer dollars, or BPU funds?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson, or O'Day, it is being purchased with BPU funds,
Perfect.
not grant funds.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek. Yes. Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion is approved. Next up is item 7B. This is the approval of the agreements with our charter contribution organizations. That's Community Action and the Center. Administrator Bergman, anything you'd like to add to what's in our packet?
Nothing in what is in the packet, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So we're looking for a motion to authorize agreements with Brainerd Community Action and Lakes Area Senior Center, Inc., for a 5-year period for 1.5% of the previous year's levy per the city charter. So move. Motion by.
Second.
Motion by Stunek, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Any discussion? Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Nope.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. Thank you. Next up is item 7C, the final reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance number 1524, amending the city code section 320 on administrative citations. Mr. Chansky, anything you'd like to add to what's in our packet?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we've got the recommended motion. Oh, we have to do the final, we have to do a public hearing. Yes?
So you need to conduct the final reading, conduct a public hearing.
Okay, so what is the order here? We're gonna do the final reading first, then the public hearing, and then if we choose to adopt it, which seems like out of order to me, but a lot of the stuff's been.
You can do whatever order you choose, Mr. President.
All right, then we're gonna look, so this is the ordinance, the proposed ordinance 1524, amending section 320 of the city code on code violations. And we're gonna start with the public hearing. So if you're here to talk about code violations, the public hearing is open at 7:55. We'll ask you to come to the microphone, state your name and address. If you're online, you press *3, and that identifies you to us that you wish to speak, and then when it's your turn to speak, *6 will unmute you. So this is code violations. So if you're here for code violations, this is your time. Anybody here for code violations? I'm gonna ask a third time. Anybody here for code violations? We will close the public hearing at 7:56, and we will look for a motion. And the first part is to conduct the final reading of proposed ordinance 1524, an ordinance amending section 320, and dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance, which must be approved unanimously. Is there a motion to hold the final reading?
So moved.
Motion by Pritchett, second by Stengline. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. All in, oh, you gotta, yeah,
Good.
all right, let's roll call it.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, so the final reading has been held and the actual reading has been dispensed with. The public hearing's been held. Next up is a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance number 1524, an ordinance amending section 320 of the city code. Is there a motion to adopt
So moved.
that motion? Motion by O'Day, second by
Second.
Pritchett. Mr. Johnson?
I will be voting against it, and my main reason is, as I stated when we first looked at this a couple meetings ago, is an ungenerous reading of this ordinance could put a maximum fine on a single property in a single year at $10,900. The old code had a max of administrative limit to $2,000. This amendment is taking away that $2,000 max and implementing instead what could be interpreted as a $10,900 max fine, and I don't think that's right. I will be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any further discussion? Mr. O'Day?
I will just say I think that's a misinterpretation of the way it's written. It's a stretch. It's changing something that just keeps on going and going and going, citation after citation. Now you get 3 citations. After 3 citations, if you don't work with the city to try and clean that up, then you get brought to a meeting of Safety and Public Works, which gets brought as a recommendation to the council. It's the most efficient way forward.
Thank you, Mr. O'Day. Any further discussion? Mayor Bedell?
I shared similar comments to Councilman Johnson when this first came up. I too believe that there is room for interpretation in this that could lead to some unfortunate fines. I hope that is not the case, but I do still believe that that could possibly be the case. I also believe, and I will state this, that you're just going to be redoing this again in the very near future, because this is going to put a lot of people in these chairs to come and have representation at these meetings, and I just simply believe that we're going to end up redoing this very soon. So I still don't fully support it, but I do believe you're headed in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion passes. All right. Next up is item D, the final reading and proposed ordinance number 1525, amending City Code Section 425, the Rental Housing Maintenance Code. And this, I believe, is Mr. Chansky. Anything you'd like to add to what's in our packet?
Not this evening.
You're what they call a short timer in the Army. All right, so we're going to conduct a public hearing in the order like we did last time, and we're going to open the public hearing for proposed ordinance 1525 at exactly 8 o'clock and ask if you're here to speak on proposed ordinance 1525 that repeals and replaces section 425 of the city code, the rental housing maintenance code. Please come forward, state your name and address. Come on up, Ray. We've been waiting for you.
I know I ruined your meeting with you looking at me the entire time, Kelly, but yeah. My name is Rick Fargo, 7102 Ojibwe, outside the city limits of Brainerd, but I do own a business that operates in the city of Brainerd, and as a matter of fact, manages 162 rental units in the city for 47 different owners and 67 different properties. In addition, I'm the president of the board of Brainerd South, another 60 units. So I do have some concern about this ordinance and have been on the committee for the last committee for almost 3 years. The one before that was my own committee, but nobody wanted to be with me. And then the one back in 2006 and 2007 when we adopted this ordinance from the city of Minneapolis. And many of you may recall that fun. We still have a couple of things that need to be, in my mind, straightened out in the ordinance. Some simple thing like the definition of family we don't have in there because it kind of throws things off with single-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, et cetera, et cetera. And we have single-family dwellings. I think that's one of the ones I dropped on the floor back there. Single-family dwellings of 2 people. A dwelling unit is a residential building or a portion thereof intended for occupancy by a single family, but not including hotels. That's out of our proposed ordinance, the 425 ordinance. The new proposed zoning ordinance, which you'll be getting to in a couple of minutes, hopefully. I'm trying to talk faster. Has definition of a dwelling unit, again, as a single unit, single family maintaining the unit. And the definition, the only definition of family that we have in any of the ordinances now is in the new proposed draft zoning ordinance, and family, again, 2 or more persons, each related to the other by blood, marriage, adoption, or foster care, or a group of not more than 4 persons not so related, maintaining a common household and using common cooking and kitchen facilities. So basically what we're saying here is there's no place in the city of Brainerd where you can have less than 2 people residing. So if you're a single person living in the city of Brainerd, you got to get a roommate. Just a little minor thing there.
When you have to get married.
Huh? No, I wouldn't. You and me, Gabe? Come on.
You guys need a little time.
Hey, I remember him when we started kindergarten. Unfortunately, Dave Puringer is not here. He's out of town, but he did send me an email today. Very concerned about section 425, 3006F. And basically what that says is, section states any person who has had 2 license denials or revocation within, I'm not going to read this whole thing, within 2 years, basically will lose all his licenses in the entire city for a period of 5 years. Dave's comment is this is an outrageous violation of a landlord's right and is also discriminatory in that it takes no account how many units the landlord has, his financial abilities, and provides no ability to remedy his apartments and keep his licenses for apartments where he has no problems. It basically puts him out of business. If I had 100 apartments rent for $1,000 apiece, this would cost me $100,000 a month or $1,200,000 per year, and with no way to remedy the problem. This would destroy my non-offending apartments. And he goes on, the solution is just the landlord is allowed to remove offending tenants, remedy the physical problems, have the offending property inspected, provide a management plan, and be made to reimburse the city for any costs of meetings and times of city employees to be sure that problems in maintenance or management are changed to acceptable standards. There could be reasonable fine, say $500, totally put a landlord out of business and bankrupt him by taking all his financial abilities away on his non-offending assets is not legal or acceptable. It could also put through the city into a major housing shortage, which is not what any of us want. So, again, Dave kind of agrees with some of the things I have. When we get to the conduct and premise section, which is what originally started this project back in the late fall of 2018, and we started in 2018. Our first meeting was December 2018. Our last meeting was in October of 2021. That's 3 years, less than 3 years, not 4 or 5 years. Just again clarifying some comments from an earlier council meeting that I recall. Yeah. Anyway, one of the biggest problems we still see, or I still see, in the conduct and premise section, although we did make a lot of changes in there, is that this is going to provide Joel Angle with our retirement fund, because there are so many legal questions in there that it's just not possible to handle. And one of the biggest things is that when you get the second and third violations for a property, is it that unit, is it that premises, is it that owner's entire holdings like Dave has? Right now, the way it reads, Tad Erickson, yeah, you blew Tad off the screen. Tad Erickson owns a duplex. Joe Blow owns one single dwelling unit structure. They're on the same level handling all this stuff as Dave Peringer, Harry and Arliss Bement. It just doesn't, we don't have any separation in there. And our biggest problem is we're dealing with people. Okay, and people we can't totally control. Like I say, I have 162, a couple hundred units, and there's just 2 people each one. It's 400 people that I have dealing with on a daily basis. I cannot possibly be right there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, seeing what they're doing. One of the problems we have with that is apparently our young people now again are getting, the meth thing was too much for them, so they're getting back into a whole lot of weed stuff. And our officers go out and they'll find somebody smoking weed, and they will give kind of maybe a nasty comment to the tenant smoking the weed, but they'll tell the tenant, we're going to tell your landlord that we're going to give the landlord a conduct on premise violation. That's our first strike, or could be our third strike, whatever. And yet they don't cite the tenant even for possession of marijuana. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. So we've got problems there where the person that's actually causing the problem isn't even cited for the problem he causes. However, by state statute, if the police tell me that one of our residents has marijuana, either in his unit or on the curtilage of the property, which means anywhere on the premises of the property, I will immediately work with him, and I can do one of 2 things. I can go and ask the county attorney to file an eviction action without charging the normal fees that would be charged to the owner, but that sometimes takes a little while. So what we normally do, and I've done, or my son Matt now has done twice in the last 6 months, is work with that tenant that's smoking weed or has weed in his possession and get them to agree to move out within a week or so. So it's just, there's some things that need to be done there. We're not quite there yet. I understand why you want these things there, but we have some stuff that has to be done yet on the part of our owners. And again, we had a good committee over that 3 years. We did one thing, we changed police officers on that 3 times. So there was some continuation problems in what we did there. But we also had, I think, about 10 or 12 different people that spent some time on that committee giving input or whatever. And I figured out why, no offense to the other committee members here, but I figured out why I have the problem, and maybe that's what caused the committee to not accomplish much, is that I found out I'm Bruce Willis. I have aphasia. And I have a heck of a time, as you all know, trying to put together my ideas and express what I'm trying to say. So with that, there are a number of other issues, but I will let others talk.
Thank you, Rick. That was just a little bit longer than 3 minutes.
Thought I got 5.
Only because you were Dave Pernger as well.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak for 3 to 5 minutes on the rental housing maintenance code, please come forward, state your name and address, and let us know what you've got to say. Anybody at all? Last call. Anybody online, Sean? All right, we will close the public hearing on the proposed ordinance 1525, and we will look for a motion to conduct the final reading of proposed ordinance 1525, an ordinance replacing section 425 of the city code and dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance, which must be done unanimously. Is there a motion?
So moved, Stingline.
Motion by Stingline. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by O'Day. Any discussion? Any discussion? Commissioner Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion is adopted. Next up is a motion to adopt proposed ordinance number 1525, an ordinance replacing section 425 of the city code. Is there a motion as such?
So moved.
Motion by O'Day, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Stangline. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance 1525? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Bevins.
Yes, that motion is adopted. All right, next up is the final reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 1526, amending the city code section 450, the property maintenance code. Mr. Chansky, this is
I've got nothing on this one.
kind
either,
of a
Mr.
last hurrah for you. Do you want to tell us anything about anything? All right, fine. I'm not going to ask again. All right, it is 8:12, and we will open the public hearing on proposed ordinance 1526, the property maintenance code. Anybody who wishes to speak on the property maintenance code? Rag. All right. Anybody who wishes to speak on the property maintenance code? Mr. Strong, anybody online? Okay, thank you. It is 8:13. We will close the public hearing on the property maintenance code. And again, we will look for a motion to conduct the final reading of proposed ordinance 1526, an ordinance replacing section 450 of the city code and dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance. Is there a motion to hold the final reading?
So move, Erickson.
Motion by Erickson, second by O'Day. Any discussion? Any discussion? Administrator Bergman, will you call the roll?
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes. That motion passes. Next up is we're looking for a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 1526, an ordinance replacing section 450 of the city code. Is there a motion to adopt 1526?
So move, Erickson.
Motion by Erickson, is there a second? Second by O'Day. Any discussion? Any discussion? Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day. Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes, that motion is adopted. That resolution is adopted. Next up is item 7F. This is the final reading and public comment for proposed ordinance number 1527, amending city code section 515, zoning code and the official zoning map. You know, I almost don't even want to ask you, but I know you got something to say on this one. Mr. Jansky.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have some words I would like to say as we set up this item tonight. During your first reading of this proposed ordinance, during your last meeting on March 21st, Jennifer Haskamp and I gave a brief overview of the proposed zoning code. However, I realized we didn't go into a lot of detail as to what has taken place over the last 18 months. Beginning with the approval of the RFP for consulting services in July of 2020 up until today, there have been 28 public meetings where the zoning code update was a noticed item on the agenda. These meetings comprise of 17 planning commission meetings and 11 city council meetings. Additionally, a pop-up open house was conducted last September during the Sesquicentennial Week on Laurel Street, and a formal open house on the full zoning code and zoning map was conducted in February. The zoning code update has also been mentioned in 7 of my staff reports of the last year, as well as in 2 presentations I gave before the city council. We have also made use of the city's Facebook page to share updates on the zoning code as they've been made available. Additionally, I have tried to make it a point to regularly provide updates on the zoning code process in various other settings, including the city's community focus segment on WJJY, where I mentioned the zoning code update at least 3 to 4 times over the last 18 months. I've provided updates to other groups such as the EDA, at Bladeck board meetings, and at River to Rail meetings. Finally, numerous articles on the zoning code update have been published in the Brainerd Dispatch throughout the update process. Also, over the last year, we have staffed almost every person who has called, emailed, or come into City Hall to discuss a potential project has been made aware of the zoning code, that the zoning code is being updated and how it may affect their property or their project. While there have been a few projects that the proposed zoning code may make more difficult, there have been many more proposed projects that would be essentially impossible under the current zoning code. We've also made drafts of the proposed zoning code available to members of the public who have asked for it, as well as published the current draft that is in your packet this evening, as well as the initial draft of the code on the city's website. This proposed zoning code is built on a foundation of the comprehensive plan that the City Council adopted in October of 2019 and the future land use map that the City Council adopted in May of 2021. It is most definitely not a document concocted by staff and consultants, but is a culmination of 18 months of intensive work by the volunteer members of the Planning Commission and other members of the public to produce a zoning code that is user-friendly and an actual representation of the city of Brainerd today and where we want to be in the future. Because I haven't done so already, I do want to take this moment to formally thank all the members of the Planning Commission who have spent dozens of hours in meetings, as well as likely dozens of hours on their own time to this project. They are Don Gorham, Mike Duval, Kevin Yeager, Teresa Woodward, Matt Calroos, and Council Liaison Tad Erickson, as well as former Planning Commission members Chris Foley and Jan Lambert. I am extremely proud of this document, and I think it is by far the best zoning code I have worked with. And it should serve this community for years to come. With that, Mr. President, I'll hand it over to you and just say I do wholeheartedly recommend that the City Council adopt this zoning code.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky. Okay. Pardon me?
Sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna do this just like we've done in the past. There's a lot of you that may want to be speaking on this, so we're gonna try and keep it to 3 to 5 minutes. I'm gonna ask for your name, the address of the property that you're concerned with, and lastly, since Tony's gonna be writing all this down, if you would, your email address would really be handy, because we may want to talk to you again about this. Tonight, all we can do is take your public comment. But if there's something that needs to be done, it'd be nice to be able to contact you. Phone number would work as well, but email would be best. All right, it is now 8:18, and this is Proposed Ordinance 1527, amending the City Code Section 515, the zoning code, and the official zoning map. So we're officially open. Please step up to the microphone. Couple of minutes if you can. Bob, thanks for coming. And give us your name.
Okay.
And address. And if you have an email address, that would be awesome as well.
Thank you.
And the handouts would be good. The seniors bring donuts.
The only reason I do it is kind of clarifies what I'm talking about. On a map on the city, there's two pieces there.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm Robert Despot. I'm actually a Fort Ripley resident, but I do own 2 parcels of industrial land in the city of Brainerd, and I've owned them for over 40 years. The first parcel is on Brook Street, where Pike Plumbing and Heating is located. The address there is 830 Brook Street. It also encompasses several other businesses and about 10 to 15 acres of land that's been industrial for over 80 years. The proposal is to change this zoning from industrial to residential, which makes our businesses non-conforming. And if you look at that first map showing Brook Street, you'll see that 12 years ago, the last Brainerd city planner attempted to rezone the parcel, and the city council and planning commission rejected the changes then, and unanimously said that the city should never rezone a piece of property to make the current use non-conforming. You can see the records from the council meeting November 10th of 2010. This industrial area was actually Brainerd's first industrial park in South Brainerd, started during World War II to provide dry milk to the Army. The second parcel of land is on Washington Street, basically from South 8th to 13th Street. And the particular parcel I'm talking about is where Brainerd Hydraulics is located. That's at 1020 and 1024 Washington Street. We have operated there since the 1980s. Brainerd Hydraulics does hydraulic repair work on heavy trucks and equipment, and changing the zoning from industrial to commercial would make this business non-conforming. Brainerd Hydraulics repairs equipment for the city of Brainerd, Crow Wing County, the state of Minnesota, Camp Ripley, numerous towns and townships surrounding Brainerd, along with private contractors and logging equipment. You may not realize it, but Highway 210 is a special road for logging. It actually has a winter weight increase for logging trucks. You see the big trucks going in the winter, that's when they do their logging. And Washington Street, or Highway 210, is one of the few major corridors in Minnesota where you can carry the overweight and, up to 103,000 pounds. And of course, the hydraulic shop is right on Washington Street, so that's where they're pulling to get their repair work. Technically, they can't go into the industrial park. Their roads are not rated for that weight. In addition, this industrial zone contains several other buildings and businesses, and it's also used industrial by Burlington Northern Railroad. If you drive along that street, you'll notice a staging area for rails, switching equipment, sign equipment, and they're constantly moving in and out of there with cranes and loading up trains and trucks. So it behooves it to be industrial from that standpoint also. I only discovered the zoning changes by taking a magnifying glass and looking at that map. Nobody told me that they were changing these parcels from industrial to residential or commercial. I just don't think that was right. I never got any direct notice that they were proposing this. That's why I didn't respond. I believe any goal of the city planning is to encourage more development and more employment in the city, and the easiest way is to start by keeping the existing businesses that we already have. I'm not trying to get them to move out of town. So I'm asking the council, whatever you do, at least leave these two parcels zoned industrial so that we can continue employment in Brainerd. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Hey, Bob, would you walk over to Tony and give her your email address? Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak to the zoning? Please come forward. Mr. Higgins, welcome.
Thank you, Council. Mike Higgins, 1801 Mill Avenue, formerly the Wausau Paper Mill, and 1511 Northern Pacific Road, which is the Northern Pacific Center now. I'm not, to be honest with you, I don't even know what is being changed with my properties. I've heard rumors. I started in meetings at 8 o'clock this morning and didn't get done until I got here, but I'm very disappointed in the process because from what I understand, my properties are going to change under this new zoning code. Could be wrong, but there's something wrong with the process here because these two properties total about 140 acres. They're two of the oldest industrial properties in the city of Brainerd, and I can't believe that that somebody wouldn't have been calling me and sitting down with me and talking to me about these changes. Now, we have had some conversations with Jennifer and David about what's happening, but I had no idea that we were this far into this. None, zero, no clue. So I'm, you know, the big property is I-2, and if it's changed from I-2 without somebody talking to me, we're gonna have problems. Because I don't know what I'm gonna do with that property yet. I've been here for 8 years. I've invested millions into it, millions. And, I just don't know with everything that's going on in the world right now, there could be manufacturing there. There's 2 different manufacturers talking about doing stuff there again. And if I have to go through a CUP permit, if that goes to a general or a I-1 or gets changed away from I-2 and I have to go through a CUP process, I'm gonna be upset and we're gonna have a problem. So, I don't like the fact that there's major changes like this going on and somebody hasn't sat down face to face with me and talked to me. I've put a lot of money into this town, both those properties, and I want to put a lot more into them. But if I got to start going through planning and zoning to do stupid little stuff that I've been zoned for, I'm not going to be happy about it. So I like everybody to know where I stand. Thank you.
No questions there. Hey, do you want to give your email address to Tony? No.
You guys got my email.
I don't have it.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
You send me bills all the time.
Anybody else who would like to speak on the zoning code or the zoning map, now is your time. Please come forward. Mike, come on up. Please state your name and your address.
Mike Murphy, 8371 Greenwood Road, Baxter, Minnesota. I think it's wrong that you're changing the zoning code without, if we go through a variance, we got to notify everybody within 300 feet or something like that. You're changing everybody's codes on their property. Send them a letter. We have to. Why can't you? You're taking these people's rights away. They deserve to have their property the way it was. Open this up so we can do business in Brainerd. Stop pounding us with rules and changes that are screwing us up. Is this where I talk about my rental property too or not? That's later.
I don't know what you want to talk about, the rental property. We're talking right now about the zoning.
Zoning,
code.
okay.
Yep.
I'll be back then. Thank you.
I think the rental one's actually already passed, Mike. All right, anybody else who wishes to talk about the zoning code and the official zoning map, please come up and let us know what you have to say. This is your time for public comment. Thanks for coming. Give us your name and address.
Kevin Gruber. I'm in Baxter, but I was the owner of Pike Plumbing for 35 years, and I rented from Bob. I guess what I don't understand is why all of a sudden things have to change. We went through this in 2010. We were told that this isn't going to be a problem. Is this something that we're going to have to watch every 5-10 years and it's going to keep changing? What was the reason for the changes? I thought we went through it in 2010 and everything was good. Now all of a sudden, 10 years later, everything's got to change again. I guess I'm not understanding why. We are the only, well, I'm not the owner anymore, but Pike Plumbing is the only plumbing and heating company in the town of Brainerd. If Bob isn't able to sell the business or the building to us, we'd have to move out because it's residential is what it's being zoned for. So I guess that's where we stand. I don't understand the reason for changing it. That's about all I got to say.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else who wishes to comment on proposed ordinance 1527 or the zoning code or the zoning map? Please state your name and address.
I'm Craig Matich, and I'm 720 Brook Street. I'm across from Pike's Plumbing. I have a little shop down there. We've been down there for 50 years. And we had a truck business out of there for all them years. Bought a lot of oil from you.
Thank you.
And I don't know. I'm going to clean it up, fix it up, paint it up, and I'd still like to get trucks down and back out of there again. Or the guy that, my relative that I'd like to sell it to that wants to buy it, that's what he does, and that's what he'd like to use my building for. So I guess if you guys change that, I'm pretty much out of whatever that building can be. Because basically that's what it's been for 50 years. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. If you want to give your email address, no? Okay.
Don't have
Oh.
Hey, I'm Jeff Strobel, 818 Brook Street. I'm the owner of Gull Lake Sandblasting and Powder Coating, and I've been there since 2003, renting from Bob, and then I own the building across from it now that I bought from Mike Wetzel. And just the same thing, I don't understand why we're changing the ruling. When I bought the building, it was zoned industrial, and it doesn't do me any good as a residential. It's, I would be out of business. So I hope you take it in consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else wishing to speak about the zoning or the zoning map? I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to ask one more time. This is it. Anybody else wish to speak on proposed ordinance 1527? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 8:32. I'd like to ask if nobody objects, the attorney a procedural question. In the past, when we do, at the end of the year, when we certify all the long grass assessments and those type of things, we approve that, but we pull a number out to come back to later. Is that a procedural thing that can be done in this instance? Where you approve, if we choose to approve the zoning as presented, but pull out those that have complained, can that be done?
Mr. President, Council, I see those as two very different things.
So I'm asking.
Yeah, the short answer to that would be no.
Okay, so we're either approving it as is,
Or send it back to staff to do something different.
okay? So y'all understand that? You're either approving it as is, as presented, or we're sending it back to staff. Or something, I suppose, in between. So we've held the public hearing, or the public comment section. The public hearing was held at the Planning and Zoning. And the next order of business would be to hold the final reading of proposed ordinance 1527, an ordinance replacing section 515 of the city code and the zoning map, and dispense with the actual reading of the ordinance, which must be done unanimously. So if we and we'll look for a motion as such. Look for a motion. That motion fails, and there's nothing else to do. Anybody want to send this back to planning and zoning?
I think there's some legitimate issues here. I would like it to go back to planning and zoning and have them tweak that, at least take a look at it.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion by Stunek, a second by Pritchett to send this back to planning and zoning. Chairman Johnson.
Yeah, I support this motion to send it back and have staff look at it. Throughout this process, we were told that these changes, and they are, by and large, that a lot of these changes are gonna take non-conforming uses and turn them into conforming uses. So we'll have fewer non-conforming properties in the city. I don't remember addressing how many properties that are currently conforming that we would be turning into non-conforming, which is the complaints we're hearing here. I would like to get a comprehensive list of how many properties are currently conforming that if we adopted these changes would be unconforming. So I support the motion to send it back.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other comments on the motion to send back? Mr. Pritchett?
You know, I'm always kind of reflecting what Councilman Johnson's saying. You know, when you have conforming properties and they become unconforming, that's always an issue. I think staff did a pretty good job about disseminating information, but it's so much information. To see how your personal property was affected by that document takes a lot of time, and I think we need to give people that time to kind of express their problems and staff to possibly remedy it. So I don't think there's fault. I mean, people are busy. I mean, to go through a document like that and see how it affects you personally and your stuff, I mean, you can't expect people to be able to get that instantly. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchett. Mr. O'Day?
I'm also supporting this motion. I think I ran a small town campaign on being business friendly, and this is a perfect example that we need to support our businesses. I think the Planning Commission had a grand vision for some of these areas, and are these buildings the most beautiful buildings we could have in those areas? Probably not, but they're functional businesses and they serve a purpose right now. So until that ends, I don't think we should be sliding any zoning changes underneath existing businesses. There's a few other things on this that I would like to look into further. I don't know if we want to have a discussion on everything that's specific about it. I talked with the mayor earlier about a issue with having ground level housing in an area that is now considered the city center. I think that would be detrimental to the downtown area. We want businesses on ground floors. We want housing above. There's just a lot of detail in that one single district. I mean, I could go on and on about the fact that I just noticed that the NP Center was changed. There's a lot of things going on there, a lot of things. And he's in his own special district right now. And a lot of that reason is a big reason why there's so much success there. And I don't think we need to change that. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It's one area that's very well defined, as well as the other BIC area as well. I think we need to just take our time. I think most of this code change is fine, but I wonder how many other businesses are out there that might hear about this meeting right now that could come up and have similar requests. And it doesn't mean that they're going to get it every time, but we need to look at those. So just slow it down and send it back to planning, zoning, or staff with any specific changes that we want.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I am disappointed in this process because I had my pen ready to veto this. I was excited to veto for the first time ever in my mayoral career. There was going to be a veto. It was going to be so much fun. I appreciate the council's direction on this. This has been a long process, and there is a lot in here, but it's a lot. And I can say, as someone who has been a part of this and has been paying attention, that there are things in here that I was caught off guard in our last meeting 2 weeks ago. And I heard something said that I was not aware was in here. And that's a red flag to me, that as someone that's been invested in it and has been following along and attending as many meetings as I possibly can, there's just a lot of information here. And I got a text message from my brother today asking if we were going to approve this. He has a vested interest in us approving this. And I said, I'm not interested in seeing us approve it. I'm interested in us seeing us get it right. So this has been a long process, 16 months or so. Sending it back and making sure that we're getting it right is the most important thing. But I want to make sure that as a council, we are actually giving guidance as to what that is. So I have a few items that I'd like to just highlight that I noticed. Councilman O'Day mentioned the town center. Very concerned for me in that I want to see our downtown expand. And with this, it seems to be drawing a line that is contracting that. I'd like to see us make sure that we're looking at that. But again, 6 people stood up here and spoke. And that's a lot. I tallied it because that's a lot of people to come and speak at a city council meeting. I'm sure there are other that are not coming up to speak that have similar concerns. That says that we have to take our time with this. That says that there's enough people in here with concerns that we have to make sure we're getting it right. And again, I just want to make sure we get it right. So I will put my pen away. I will not veto this because you're making the right decision, of course.
How about down here? Anybody else running for office this fall? Want to give their campaign speech now? How they support everybody? Yes.
Mr. President.
I'm getting there. All right, Tad?
Thank you, Mr. President. So as liaison from the council to the planning commission, I just wanted to weigh in. I agree with a lot of what David had said earlier about the process. You're never going to reach everybody, and it sounds like there's additional communication that needs to be done. I agree with the comment that I believe it was the mayor was passing on from his brother, that we need to get it right. And so I think an iterative process like this, sending it back, will be fine. I think that there's several things in the updated plan that I want to speak in favor of. The shift from a use-based standards to more of a form-based code, I think provides a lot more flexibility for residents, for business owners. That was a long time discussion throughout the 15, 16, 17-month process that the Planning Commission brought up many times. It also reduces the burden of regulatory burden by creating administrative permits. So I think there's a lot of streamlining. I know David has held up before the current plan, like a 3-inch thick plan, or ordinance rather, and this reduces that down considerably. So it does a lot of what the concerns that the people were speaking. I think the plan does actually address some of those. Is it perfect? A plan's never perfect, and so I'm going to support the motion to send it back to Planning Commission, particularly as a liaison to the Planning Commission. I think the planning process, and I think this updated document is very good. Does it need some tweaking? Every plan does, or every ordinance does. So I think it'll be a positive development to send it back, address these concerns, do some further outreach. I know we collected some emails, hopefully, and reaching out to the 6 who spoke to address their issues as well. So, but I want to speak in favor of the document and the process, and for those who contributed. And again, this has been a long running planning process. And it's been developed over several months with members of the community. The Planning Commission are members of the community with vested interests as well, staff and also consultants. So, but again, another look at it is going to be wonderful. So, I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Tad. All right. I think we've heard enough. We get the idea. We have a motion. We have a second. Administrator Bergman, we need to call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek. And there he is.
Stunek, in favor of sending it back?
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes. Mr. Duval, you get some idea of what the issue is?
Yes.
All right, thanks for coming. Next up is item G, the final reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance 1528, replacing section 1135 of the Brainerd City Code. This is the tobacco under 21 years of age in accordance with Minnesota statutes. We are going to open the public hearing on this ordinance at, I don't even know what time it is, it's 8:44. And ask if you're here to speak on proposed ordinance 1528, please come forward, state your name, your address, and let us know about what you think about selling tobacco to people only above 21. Anybody here to speak on that? We will close the public hearing at 8:45. I got that figured out.
Okay, thanks.
And we will look for a motion to hold the final reading of proposed ordinance 1528, replacing the current city code 1135 tobacco and related products.
So moved, Johnson.
Motion by Johnson, is there a second by O'Day? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes, that motion is adopted or passes. Now we're going to adopt the proposed ordinance 1528, an ordinance replacing city code 1135 tobacco and related products. Is there a motion to?
So moved, Johnson.
So moved, Johnson, second by Pritchett. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes, that motion is adopted. Thanks to Chief Bestel, who's not here, and everybody at the police department who worked on that to hopefully get it right. Okay, next up is item H, which is the committee recommendations. As council president, I want to recommend Melissa Willis for the Tower fundraising committee.
Motion to approve, Johnson.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Mr. President, I'm sorry for my absence, but roll call if necessary.
Can you veto that?
Most certainly can.
Mr. Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yep.
Pritchett?
Yes.
And Bevins?
Yes. Welcome aboard, Melissa. Next up, item I is the call for applicants, the Honorable Mayor Badeau.
Oh, you are all so excited to hear me speak again. Call for applicants. Information on application for the following committees is available at www.ci.brainerd.mn.us/boards with an S, then another slash. I have the following committees that we are looking for applications. Cable TV Advisory Committee, 2 terms expiring 2022, 1 term expiring 2024. Charter Commission, 1 term expiring 2022, 1 term expiring 2025. Rental Dwelling License Board of Appeals, 3 terms expiring 2022. We also have the following for the EDA, which is 1 term expiring 2022 and 1 term expiring 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and as council president, I have 1 position on the planning commission, just in case anybody's interested in how this happens. A term to expire 2023, and the Water Tower Fundraising Committee has 2 positions available. One now. Item 8, new business, resolution 8A, and public hearing, ordering the improvement, approving plans and specs, and ordering advertisements for bids. Public Works Director Sandy, anything you wish to add to what's in our packet on improvement 21-10?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So for those in the audience tonight, this improvement here is the reconstruction of Greenwood Street. That is from Woodland Hills Lane to South 6th Street. The city is proposing to construct that roadway into a bituminous surface. If you live in that area, it is a gravel surface currently. That will be along with MnDOT's reconstruction of Highway 371B this summer. Tonight, the council will be holding their improvement hearing, which is to hear testimony for or against the improvements as they're identified. There's an assessment hearing that comes later typically in the fall, that you'll be able to provide testimony for or against your proposed assessment rate. So again, Mr. Chair, tonight we're just holding the public hearing in which we'll hear testimony for or against said improvements, and if the council concurs that the improvements are indeed feasible and cost effective, you would direct staff to order that improvement and get the advertisement for bids out. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sandy? Hearing none, it is 8:47, and we will open the public hearing to hear testimony for or against said improvements. 21-10, reconstruction project on Greenwood Street from Woodland Hills Lane to South 6th Street, which is Highway 371 business. Anybody who wishes to speak on that project, now's your time. Anybody who wishes to speak on that project, please come forward. Last call. We will close the public hearing on improvement 2110 at 8:50, and we will look for a motion to adopt the attached resolution ordering the improvement, approving plans and specs, and ordering advertisements of bids to be opened May 6, 2022 at 11 a.m.
So moved.
So moved,
By
Erickson.
Pritchett, so moved by Erickson, second by Pritchett. I heard it right. Any discussion? Hearing none, Administrator Bergman, please call the roll.
Stingline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Thank you. Next up is item, I don't even know where we're at anymore. Item 8, new business B, which is improvement 2112. It's a reconstruction project in North Brainerd on North 3rd Street, North 6th Street, North 7th Street, and Juniper Street. Mr. Sandy, Public Works Director, anything you'd like to add to what's in the packet?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Similar to the last public hearing you just held, this will be to hear testimony for that reconstruction project. Again, this is a full reconstruction in North Brainerd on North 3rd Street from Washington Street to Holly Street, North 6th Street from Washington Street to Juniper Street, North 7th Street from Kingwood Street to Holly Street, and Juniper Street from 2nd to 10th Street. That includes full utility replacements, so water main replacement, storm sewer, the re-inclusion of the median on North 6th Street. Those improvements are not assessed for. So again, per our assessment policy, we assess for 50% of the reconstruction of the street itself. Estimates that we came up with at a staff level are about $80 a foot. For the assessments tonight, again, is to hold the improvement hearing, which is to hear testimony for or against the said improvements. The assessment hearing would come later on in the fall to hear testimony for or against the proposed assessments. Thank you.
Thank you, and I know you notified the Northside Residents Association of this, but I'm going to ask it again. Timing of this project, being that it's basically around Gregory Park in the middle of the summer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're proposing 3 phases. Phase 1 would be what would be considered the west side of the project, North 3rd Street in front of the hospital, and then 2 blocks of Juniper Street. There's a small phase in there to get the work done right in front of the hospital that connects their parking lots to their front door. That'll get done in a very quick time frame. The rest of the project, we're thinking about 6 weeks per phase. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 would be North 6th Street, and then Juniper Street from 4th to 7th, and that's another 6 weeks. And then phase 3 is North 7th Street and the last 3 blocks of Juniper Street. So you can think of those, if we start June 1st, 6 weeks for each of those, you're looking at the middle of July for the first phase, middle of July to the end of August for the second phase, and the beginning of, or the end of August to the middle of September for the third phase. If I did that right.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, it is 8:53, and we'll open the public hearing to hear testimony for or against the improvements on project 21-12. Please state your name and address and tell us what you think of the project. Come on up, Pam.
Thank you. My name's Pam Stock. I reside at 317 North 7th Street. I support it. I just have a few questions that maybe now's the time or not.
Can't actually ask questions now. You
Okay.
have to
Well,
test
what I would like to, I support it, but I'm curious about how it will affect those of us that don't have alleys to park in when our street is being worked on. And so I'm just curious, at some point, I'm hoping we can find out how that will all come out for us, because I don't know. Where there aren't very many streets on the north side that don't have alleys, but our block on 7th Street happens to be one of them that doesn't have alley access. So I look forward to hearing about that in the future.
Come see Paul.
Okay,
Just give me a
I'll be
call.
knocking on your door.
I like to
you.
come at lunchtime, you get your answers quicker. Anybody else who wishes to speak on project 2112, I apologize, all around Gregory Park except for the side that was done 5 years ago, or 10 years ago? My side. Anybody at all? All right, it's 8:55. We will close the public hearing. So we're looking for a motion to adopt the attached resolution, ordering the improvement, approving plans and specifications, ordering the advertisement of bids to be opened May 6, 2022 at 10 a.m.
So moved, Stingline.
Motion by Stingline,
I'll second.
second by O'Day. Any discussion? Hearing none. Administrator Bergman, you know what to do.
I do. Stengline.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Stunek.
Yep.
Johnson.
Yep.
Pritchett.
Yes.
And Bevins.
Yes. That resolution is adopted. Next up is the public forum. This is time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. We usually ask you to keep it under a couple of minutes, and it is 8:56. And if you've got something to speak about that we have not discussed this evening, now's your time. Second call. Last call. Oh, here we go. Come on forward. State your name and address and tell us what you're here for. And thanks for coming.
Okay, my name is Brittany Egan, 512 South 9th Street. I'm a resident of Brainerd Lakes area, and I'm a person in long-term recovery from drugs and alcohol. I've been in and around the recovery community for the last 10 years and was a drug court graduate. Being a drug court graduate, I know what accountability and structure, the importance of accountability and structure is to early recovery. And I know that one of the greatest barriers to attaining long-term recovery is safe, stable housing. With that being said, I am grateful for the sober homes that we do have in the community, but I am concerned about them being safe. There have been 14 police calls to the sober homes on Tyrell Drive in the last 14 months. And there's been ongoing use inside the homes. I have made efforts to meet with people in the community. I've tried meeting with Sheila and Joe this morning, the owners and the people that manage it, with my concerns, hoping that they would hear some outside input from the community. And I was met with a lot more defense than open arms, I guess, and willing to hear anything. I'm hoping that there will be ongoing efforts to find a way to solve these issues. But as of now, I know that there's not a whole lot of oversight from the city standpoint, or even really the county standpoint, or state regulations on what can be called a sober home. And when I met with them today, I found out that this was more independent living rather than supportive, sober housing. And I think that people in the community should be aware of that, because I don't know that people are really aware that they're not staffed and they're not being watched. And there's been a lot of concern from people inside the homes that are also afraid to speak up because they have to be there at this time. And so I'm hoping that at some point we can find a way to have some more kind of regulations over this and come up with some kind of answers, because we have sober homes that are working in the community, but what we have over on Tyrell Drive is not working.
Thank you. Anybody else? If it's not on the agenda tonight, this is your chance. Mr. Murphy, state your name and address, and what do you got to tell us?
Mike Murphy, 8371 Greenwood Road, Baxter, Minnesota. I want to talk about variances. With the new code that's coming or not coming or whatever it's doing, we're not quite sure yet, but with the new code, when it does go through, which I'm sure it will somewhere along the line, the variance is restrictive in the point that we're trying to get a variance for something that is not allowed by the code or the code that it will be. But it costs a fortune to do this. They want a certificate of survey, drawn on, have an architect draw it up. They want, it's location of all buildings within 100 feet of my property line, so I got to go onto somebody else's property to have them show where all the buildings are for a variance. This is all on the public. You can pull it up on the screen. It shows the elevations. It shows everything. It shouldn't need to be for a variance to spend that expense to get it. And then if we do decide, if you decide that I want the variance and you say no, I'm stuck with a big expense with architects, engineers, and everything for you to say no, and then that's it, I'm done. I don't think that's right. You should have an idea what the property is going to be. Let the people draw up the drawings. Let them do what they need to do. So you understand, and if we need more clarification, we can work together. We don't need to have architects and engineers and surveyors to take and show you where the property is on, you got, the computer shows you all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else who wishes to speak at public forum, let the council know your thoughts on something we haven't discussed yet this evening. Anybody at all? All right, it's 9:02. We will close the public forum. We're going to move on to staff reports. We'll start over on this side. Chris Hubert, HR Director.
I'm happy to report that I was informed on Friday that we were awarded the Crowing Energized grant for our water bottle filling station in City Hall. So we'll be getting $2,000 to help that installation and cost.
Excellent. Fire Chief, what was that?
Nothing, I'm sorry.
Fire Chief Holmes?
Nothing to add, thank you.
From the Attorney's Office?
Nothing here, thank you.
Short-termer Chansky? When's the last day?
Official last day is April 22nd.
Okay. Paul Sandy?
I have nothing further that's not in my report.
Finance Director Hillman?
Nothing to report.
IT Director Strong? GIS Director Strong? Media Guy Sean? Deputy Chief Davis? All right. Administrator Bergman?
Nothing to add that is not in my report.
Right. Anybody online, Sean? Eric Charpentier, HRA, anything?
Nothing this evening, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? All right, we'll move on to the mayor's report.
Veto.
Holy heck, skipping over the council to get straight to the mayor.
That's VITO.
Oh, what fun we have, isn't it?
Report.
I wouldn't have vetoed it, would I have? Yes, I would have. So I got 3 items. First of all, I want to thank the Pine Tree Division of the Boy Scouts of America for allowing me to MC their dinner and award banquet that happened on Sunday. A great event where many young gentlemen and a few young ladies were able to be awarded some certificates and whatnot. The mayor only screwed up a handful of times, if you can imagine. Most of them involved reading. As a dyslexic person, maybe some of you may not know that, but as a dyslexic person, every once in a while my reading gets a little awkward. So it was fun though. We had a lot of fun. Congratulations to all those individuals. Second note, Winter Snow Shoveling Brigade. And we all know that it started to snow again, but we're hopeful that it is done. But I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people that were involved in that this year. Many individuals. And a little extra thank you to the county for their help and interfaith volunteers who have volunteered to step up and take that program on going forward. And so we're hopeful to try and help find some funding for that for them through some nonprofits and some grants. But we are going to have a small thank you gathering that should be taking place here soon. We haven't set a full date on that, but that should be happening soon. We should probably do that before summer for snow shoveling, but we want to make sure that the groups that were involved in that, the junior JCs and the Boy Scouts, as well as all the individual volunteers that we had, are able to attend that. So that was a big item. And then the third item on here, I get to make proclamations from time to time. It's one of the few things I get to do. And there's an anniversary coming up here that's really important to our city. It also ties into another event I was able to attend. The Armory here in town just recently had their ribbon cutting for their remodel. I don't know if you guys had ever been in the Armory, but it was a very dark building. And they've done a lot of updating to it that is really fantastic looking and brightened that place up quite a bit. But one of the things that was really important to us, obviously in Brainerd, is our tradition of military service. And there were two items that I wanted to note. They have a very large, very heavy piece of the original armory that was located right across the street from us here. The big entrance sign that says Armory that is made out of, I believe, granite. I may be incorrect about that, but I believe it's made out of granite. They've actually hoisted that up and they have that secured in the, I'll call it a basketball court. I'm sure there's a military name for it that is not basketball court, but I'll call it a basketball court. But I just wanted to note that. The other thing is the memorial that they have there and the historical items that they have, which tie into the second piece, which is the proclamation, which is referring to the Baton Death March. And some of you may know that we are coming up on the anniversary of that event once again this year. And so I'm just going to read the proclamation. We have already stated, dyslexic, everyone. So if things go haywire, we know why. But as the mayor, I'd like to read the following proclamation. Whereas the Baton Death March, which took place in the Philippine Islands during World War II, was one of the cruelest acts committed against the U.S. fighting men who fell into enemy hands. Whereas the 194th Tank Battalion of Brainerd, Minnesota, left Fort Lewis, Washington in late 1941 for the Philippine Islands to help strengthen the U.S. armed forces there. Whereas during the outbreak of World War II, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and invaded the Philippine island of, and you're going to help me out with the pronunciation of this, Luzon, to capture it, where they engaged in a 5-month battle with the U.S. armed forces, including the 194th Battalion, who were ultimately forced to surrender the Bataan Peninsula to the Japanese on April 9th, 1942. Whereas these brave men, sick and wounded, lacked food, medical supplies, ammunition, and armor, went into Japanese captivity and were forced to march on what is now known as the Bataan Death March. Whereas of the 64 men from the tank company that left Brainerd, who went with the 194th to the Philippines, 3 were killed in action, 29 died as prisoners of war, and 32 survived captivity. These men didn't know until after they were freed in 1945 that their battle of 5 months helped America and her allies to build ships, armor, supplies, and train the men necessary to fight to take back the lands conquered by the Imperial Japanese forces. Whereas the citizens of Brainerd should honor the memory and acknowledge the sacrifices of all members of this tragedy. Therefore, I, Mayor Dave Bedell, do hereby proclaim April 19th, 2022, a day of remembrance to honor the sacrifices of the members of the 80th anniversary of the start of the Baton Death March.
Thank you.
Thank you. End of report.
Thank you. Council member reports, Tad Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I wanted to tonight is just recognize David on his resignation. And thank you, David, for your time serving the city of Brainerd and its residents. David, congratulations. And I'm really excited for you for this next opportunity. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Tad. Do you have any sting line?
Nothing this evening.
Chief Stunick?
Downtown Golf Saturday was a hoot. Leave it at that.
Is there any videos that we have to worry about?
No, not for me.
All right.
I was undercover.
Chairman Johnson. Yeah, but the St. Patrick's Day is over, so we all knew who it was in the green.
I've got a few items. The EDA is meeting this Thursday, and we're further refining the properties that Jennifer Haskamp is going to develop marketing material for developers. And last month we prioritized the downtown parking lots that we all agreed to sell. That's going to be priority number one, the industrial park lots, and then we're going to further work on what our B priorities are, if you will. I want to apologize to Steve Zielinski that his greenhouse is going to go roofless for the foreseeable future. I hope we can come to a good ending on that. And then finally, my son's Cub Scout pack is looking for a community service project to conduct in July. So if the Parks Department or some department of the city could think of something little kindergartner through fifth graders could do as an act of community service, please let me know. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Pritchett?
Nothing to report.
Mr. O'Day?
Yeah, I actually benefited from the mayor's dyslexia just yesterday. He double booked himself, so I was able to fill in for the military banquet dinner for the Norwegian Soldier Exchange farewell dinner party. Awesome experience. I will say I'm about 6 feet tall. My wife is 5'9". We felt like the smallest people in the room. They have giants in our military. I'm not kidding you. The general could probably kill Paul Bunyan with his bare hands. He's huge. But I will say, I remember you talking about this last year, and you said that they wanted us to come out there and tour, but none of us believed you. They actually do. And I'm telling you this, you guys believe me. They actually want us to come out there and tour this place. And I asked for RPG target sessions. They're going to work on it. But for sure we have tank simulators and helicopter simulators to entice a visit to...
Sign me up.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, we're doing it. And I said, when? And he said, how's June?
Thank you.
So, yeah, so just reserve all of June. I don't know what day.
We'll adjourn our meeting down there.
We'll be there all of June.
Kevin Yeager can come.
Yeah. But great experience overall.
Thank you.
That was the best report yet.
And
Yeah, I have nothing to add.
Thank you for attending that for me.
It is now item 13. We're looking for a motion to take a 5-minute break and then adjourn to a closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3C3, to consider counteroffers for the purchase of property at 504 11th Street South, Brainerd, Minnesota. Motion by Pritchett, second by Johnson. All in favor? No. Call the roll.
Stingline?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
Stunick? Johnson? Pritchett?
Yes.
Bevins?
Yes. We're taking 5.